Jennifer Adams, Base Camp Mount Everest, and I want to share with you an incredible journey featuring three remarkable men. They're among Australia's toughest policemen who are attempting to summit one of the world's most revered mountains. It's a dangerous climb. They're determined to finish, to also honour a mate, Paul Farr, the former head of Victoria's Special Operations Group, who died while training for this very climb. Apollo Bay, Victoria, a world away and months out from their final goal. Greg Linsdale and John Taylor never dreamt it would be like this, because they never thought they'd climb the world's highest mountain without their best friend, Paul Farr. 10 years ago, they were invincible. Paul was the head of Victoria's Special Operations Group, and Greg and JT were in his care. They formed lifelong friendships. Their passion for pushing the boundaries became a mission to become Australia's first ever police team to summit Mount Everest, and in turn raise money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation to help seriously ill kids. But this story is tinged with regret. Greg and Paul were desperate to climb Everest. They trained relentlessly for years. But when it came time to tackle one of Himalaya's highest peaks, a final assault before Everest, Greg couldn't go and asked his friend to wait. Paul refused.
There ensued a heated conversation where I made it very clear that I felt that he didn't need to go to Choa.
It was a decision which would affect both men's lives. Paul left his wife and baby daughter Ella at home, but he forgot to take his St Christopher necklace, which he and Julie had always exchanged to ensure his safe return.
I think Greg will hope that Paul will be climbing alongside him, and I think he will be.
How are you there, leader?
I'm fantastic.
Looking forward to the next few days?
Looking forward to gaining some altitude over the next few days.
The group was on track, then the weather closed in and they waited. It was a fateful decision. During the night, Paul died of a heart attack brought on by altitude. Lying next to him was Detective Nick Farr. Usually climbers who die on the mountain stay on the mountain, but not Paul Farr. Victoria's Police Commissioner Christine Nixon managed a minor miracle and convinced the Chinese government to help bring him home. It was the first time a Nepalese helicopter had been flown into Chinese airspace for a climber. Greg and John headed to Nepal and helped with the recovery. Paul was brought home with full police honours. His funeral overflowed with tales about the quiet, unassuming man nicknamed Possum.
It is a privilege to be your daughter. Your spirit will live on through your four daughters.
Paul Farr died doing what he loved, but his dream of putting the first Australian police team on the summit of Mount Everest lived on.
But the renewed and reformed team is determined to see it through.
His death brought Greg, JT and Nick together, and they carried on the dream.
We all know that, you know, there'll be a very strong sense of Paul being on that journey as well.
Almost 2 years later, and 10 years in the making, the expedition is finally on its way. Greg and JT are lucky enough to be taking their partners and some members of their families and friends. It's a tense farewell for Nick and his partner Kath. She hopes to make it to base camp around the time of the summit. This is no holiday. It's constantly said it's an adventure, but if the truth be told, for these men it's more a job that has to be finished, a promise to a mate they want to make good on, and a boyhood dream for each of them. The flight is a dream trip as we anxiously wait to spot Mount Everest.
How do you feel when you look at it?
It looks massive. I can't believe we're going to go and climb that. How are you feeling?
Yeah, really excited. It's doing good.
The tallest mountain in the world peaks through the clouds, and you can feel the magnitude of what these men are about to do.
Lots of energy, you can feel the energy, it's good.
Welcome to Kathmandu, Nepal. This tiny country with a population of 25 million is famous for its mighty peaks, but it's also paralysed by political unrest with warnings for tourists to stay away. As soon as we arrive, we're blessed by the gods for a safe passage. Our welcome is a warm one with a rock star name. The team leader from England, Kenton Cool, is one of the best climbers in the world, and on the back of a successful Everest expedition last year, is full of confidence.
Just get in your head that it's going to be a success, and that's the way it will work. That's the way it worked last year. So think positive and everything will work out.
Nick Farr still finds it hard to talk about what happened on Cho Oyu when the man who he shared a passion for climbing with passed away. But you see him around the Sherpas, he feels free to share. Over dinner, he receives a special visit from Narayan, who helped take Paul's body off the mountain. He even flew all the way out to Australia to pay respects to his family. As the two chat into the night, it's easy to see Nick feels at home here. The group is finally on its way. To be one of the most terrifying flights of my life. I'm still shaking, but we arrived. Welcome to the Lukla Airport. Now this is the place where you must come if you're going to trek up to Base Camp Mount Everest, or in fact summit Mount Everest on the south side.
Namaste.
Namaste.
How are you?
How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
At 2,300 metres, already you can notice the difference in altitude. The air is thin, but the views are spectacular. We sleep in lodges and tents. 8,000-metre peaks tower over you, and one of many in the passing parade of trekkers, yaks, Sherpas and their children. Days start to blur into one another as we make our way. As night falls, they turn into parties filled with scrumptious food and warm Nepalese hospitality. But the trekking at altitude is taking its toll. JT is one of the first to be struck down with the flu. He's worried, frustrated, and the mind games of Everest begin. Now tell me, how are you feeling?
I've got a throat infection and finding it a little bit hard to talk. It's just one of those things. I think someone had the flu and passed it on to me.
As the days pass, Nick's struggling to even walk after a skiing accident on a recent training trip in Aspen.
Oh, it's good, you know, it's good. I'm just managing it and it's feeling good, and I'm just going to tell myself it's good, you know. Suddenly I wake up and it's not good, well, I'll deal with that.
Now, this is what I love about mountaineering, is coming to fantastic countries and meeting the people.
Greg's battling his own demons. He has the support of his own brother, but he's here silently searching for his best mate, who he lost walking through this very land. Almost a week in, we meet the climbers' Sherpa team.
Just want to introduce you to our Sherpa staff here. These boys, well, these are basically the heroes that are going to get us all to the top of the mountain this year. Without them, it just wouldn't happen.
And get our first glimpse of Everest, tucked behind a bustling little Sherpa town called Namche Bazaar.
You only see a tiny little bit of Everest. It's just
is it that little nip just in the middle? Yeah.
Looking at it, it doesn't quite look like Everest to me as yet. You know, it's still a long way off, but yeah, very, you know, feeling deeply inside, basically, when you look at all the mountains around, a bit of the snowdrift coming off the top, you know, it's fantastic.
Welcome to April Fool's Day and an insight into Nick Farr. He gets Kenton to tell the group troubles with Maoist rebels means the trip could be off.
The Maoists have been active up the valley.
And what they've essentially done is they've put a blockade on base camp, so we can't get there at the moment. So yeah, sorry about that, guys. We're just going to have to sort of hold it there for a bit and just see what goes. Well, indefinitely, I'm afraid.
Not happy, Jen. I'm not entirely impressed with the unrest in this part of the valley.
How are you feeling, Nick, about the Maoist situation?
I think it's absolutely hilarious. I think we've pulled off the greatest April Fool's Day joke ever in the history of Nepal.
Winding our way up the Khumbu, the higher we go, the slower we walk. We're at Samadhi, which is at about 4,040 metres. This is the first time in the past week that I've felt like I've been suffering from altitude. Coming up the mountain or the hill, I've been really short of breath. I've got tingling in my hands and a really sore stomach.
I woke up with a stinking headache this morning, just an altitude job, and drank a lot first thing this morning, and got over that, got up the hill and back, and yeah, it's been a good day.
Loving it. It's awesome. Yeah, I wish I could stay.
No, I'll be all right. I'm used to him leaving, so no, I'm quite keen for him to do what he wants to do, and yeah, no, I'll be right. No worries.
Oh, I don't think there's anything to reassure. She knows me well enough that, you know, she knows what I'm like, and, you know, look, I'm going to give 100% no matter what, and I'll be careful about it as I go along.
Sitting up here really is quite overwhelming. We're in a memorial for all the Sherpas and the climbers who've lost their lives in the Everest region. And I guess coming up here today has really brought home the seriousness to the group of what the men are about to do.
I mean, you've been told the numbers of how many people have died on Everest, but you look at the experience of some of them, like Scott Fisher's memorials over there, and everybody's read about him. You got the Sherpa that's climbed 11, well, he's going for his 11th attempt, you know, and basically pushed it to that limit where he got out one day to take photos and fell in a crevasse. It just shows you how careful you have to be and how unpredictable it is.
Oh, I think just Paul and the whole events of 2003. And yeah, how much he would have liked to have been walking through this valley himself. Paul's spirit should have been coming up this mountain. For whatever reasons it's not.
He's around and he's here, and he'll probably be here, you know, when we really need him to be here.
Greg's brother Paul and I were to learn that altitude sickness can strike without warning. Today proved to be one of the hardest of my life, and one that at the same time claimed 2 other lives just a few hours walk away.
This has not been staged. All night Jennifer Adams has had a searing headache, maybe suffering AMS, mountain sickness.
Fine, Jen. I was ordered to go back down the mountain to reacclimatise. Already 8 people have died in the region in the 2 weeks we've been here from altitude sickness and being blown off smaller peaks. It's turning out to be a weird start to the season. The group stayed close together as they made the 2-hour trek to Mount Everest Base Camp. Today, most would say goodbye. Tracy and Cherie, the only 2 left in for the long haul.
Take care of yourself. Will. This is Moira.
I know. He's doing this with my sister.
We'll take care of him, mate, don't worry. All right?
Welcome to what we call our quarry, hundreds of thousands of rocks all piled up on top of a glacier. The notorious icefall and Everest, tucked behind the Great Nuptse Wall and towering above Lhotse, the 4th highest peak in the world. This is a cold, harsh place where life is so fragile. With the puja ceremony underway, the thunder of a nearby avalanche sets the scene of base camp. The team can't wait for the next stage. This training session, preparation for the notorious icefall, where most deaths occur from a simple slip on a ladder.
Never be overconfident.
We have a sense of security when here and
Cost you your life.
No more altitude sickness. All better. Welcome to life at Everest Base Camp. 120 climbers from all over the world and a record number of 8 Aussies here having a crack at the top. Living on the rocks, 5,300 metres above sea level, where the temperature plummets to -20.
Good morning, Didi.
Good morning, kiddo.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Did you have a good sleep?
Yes. Good morning, JT.
Good morning, kiddo. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Good, thanks.
This is what we do every day for 2 months.
Well, I was sitting, waiting, wishing you believed in superstitions. Then maybe you'd see the signs.
It looks too high.
The team makes its first climb through the icefall and up to Camp 1, something they'll do countless times to acclimatise before they're pushed to the summit.
Just half steps, that's it, good. Keep leaning forward, Nick, keep leaning forward. Hard day at the office, mate.
It's just not a matter of leaving base camp and going to the summit. In the end, we'll probably travel through the icefall maybe 8 times up and 8 times down. That'd be 16 times. You have to learn to acclimatise, go to Camp 1, come back down for a rest. Then you go to Camp 1, come back down with some equipment, take some equipment up. Then you go to Camp 2, and the same procedure goes all the way through from Camp 2, 3 to 4 till you finally get down up to the summit, and then you come back down.
The men return looking a little worse for wear. At altitude, it's a matter of time before sickness strikes.
There's nothing you can avoid. It's just a matter of waiting when it's going to come. Hopefully we've had it now, have a bit of medication, or just let it run its course. I'm feeling better now.
Developed a sore throat similar to the one that JT had yesterday. Felt it was starting to come down into the chest.
Nick's exhaustion is quickly overshadowed by the arrival of his partner, Kath.
It's fabulous to be here, finally. I think it's really good to see what it is that has captured him and his heart.
How do you think you'll be, Kath, when he's going up for the push?
I'll be as strong as he needs me to be.
Good answer.
At altitude, everything's hard.
1 shower per climber per week, if you're lucky. And today I am that lucky climber. I've got a bucket of water in the shower tent, absolutely fantastic. And a little bit of luxury from home with the Cousins Imperial leather soap. And on that note, I'm out of here. Because it's going to be 7 days before we get to do this again. As long as it's going to take for the cats to have another win.
Don't tell Greg, I've just taken this out of his tent.
Time passes. The men return from an entire week on the mountain, and JT brings home the bad news he has frostbite.
I had to try and light the stove this morning. Everything was frozen. We had more snow in the tent than we had outside. Just the condensation is like snowy inside. And trying to light the stove, and the cigarette lighter was frozen. Everything was frozen. Just 5 minutes of mucking around without my gloves on in the tent. So a good learning curve for all of us.
That learning curve could cost him his dream, with a visit to the team doctor who tells him if he goes back up the mountain, he could lose his fingers.
Went through a stage of being really painful.
Yeah.
And then it's gone to a stage of being like pins and needles now. I can feel the circulation trying to get back in.
It's more than frostnip.
Yeah, I thought it was a little deeper than that,
Yeah, I mean, you can see
the white,
I'm not getting much in the way of blood
coming back.
So
just
the question is whether it's going to be safe to
go back up.
Yeah,
I know.
basically, if you refreeze frostbitten
It's
tissue,
not going to help.
you'll lose it.
And Nick tells of a narrow escape from an avalanche.
Because I was just walking through Camp 1 and there was a really big crack.
just up on the west shoulder, and it was a really loud crack. I just passed someone, and I saw it all coming down. There was a big crevasse between it and where I was. I was really lucky.
Luckier than Nick knew. A few days later, an avalanche completely wipes out Camp 1. Not a tent left in sight. Miraculously, only 7 people are injured. Our cook's brother, a Sherpa on the mountain, is one of them. Sustaining 4 broken ribs, barely able to breathe, he's evacuated with the other victims, who are all Western climbers.
It's like a wave, actually. If you're, like surfing, if you get hit by a wave, you start getting rolled and trashed around a bit. And it kind of felt like that. You start, swinging your arms and trying to move around.
I was very conscious of trying to keep my the debris and stuff away from my face and kind of maintain a space for myself to breathe when the whole thing came to an end.
In what's turning out to be one of the worst seasons on record, a helicopter flies in to evacuate other climbers and crashes on landing.
Saw a piece of debris flying overhead. So it's pretty scary, and it's unbelievable that nobody got hurt, nobody on the ground got hurt, and nobody in the helicopter got hurt.
The weather is warming up, the icefall's starting to melt, the Sherpas are calling for the mountain to be closed. The climbers petition for it to stay open. With news a 35-year-old American climber's been killed in a crevasse fall and a 65-year-old died from altitude sickness, the team ponders its fate. Today's the 2nd anniversary of Paul Carr's death. Teams do anything to lift spirits here. The highest marathon in the world, the highest game of ice hockey, and even a game of Aussie rules that attracts climbers from all over the camp. And it's not easy at altitude, let alone on the rocks. Despite the laughter and smiles, there's an underlying tension. The weather forecasts aren't good, and there's only a few weeks of the season left.
It's tense. We're past midway of the month. The forecast put us up there about the 20th. We've had several, potential windows, and I think we can all see the month evaporating. So I guess there's a degree of anxiety about the fact that there may not be a window.
This is a really hard time. You work hard and you prepare and you get ready for a day, and then the day comes and goes, and then the weather says in 2 more days, and then those days come and go, and you're going up and you're coming down and you're preparing, and it's a real pain, but this is all part of it.
This time, the gods were smiling.
This isn't a perfect forecast. As I say, Farr is not forecasting for dropping winds. So this is a marginal forecast that we're looking at. If we went, then we would have to be fairly sensible and pull the plug early if we decide to pull the plug, like pull it out of the South Col.
This time we go up there, we're going out there for real. So they've been up there, up and down, I think 12 times now. So yeah, be good the next time that we go. We're going to stay up there and do what we have to do.
I'm feeling good because today we're going. Been trying to get up the mountain for a long time, and we finally are.
Got the little people, it's little good luck charms, like a little medicine bag that's been given to me by my family. So that goes on every climb that I've been on so far.
Today, JT's frostbite has improved and he's going to have a shot at his dream. The men make their way past the puja for good luck and head to the icefall.
I want the tent tidy.
Yeah, some shape.
A lot of hard work has got them here. This is their moment. They have to seize it. They've all worked so hard, and now is the time, and they have to seize it. So, Godspeed.
Reports confirm the weather is not ideal. Greg, Nick and JT are one of the few teams making an attempt. It seems the whole mountain is listening.
Yeah, this is base camp to Camp 2, just doing your 6 p.m. welfare check, over.
2 to base camp, Camp 2 to base camp, receiving you.
The Victoria Police team slogs its way up the mountain, spending 2 nights at Camp 2 at 6,200 metres just 2,700 metres away from their dream.
Sitting in a tent, waiting for weather. It's a pain in the ass, but it's all part of it.
How is the weather up there now, over?
Yeah, well, consistent with that, we've been listening to avalanches all day, but it's quite clear now, and we're planning on going ahead tomorrow up to base up to Camp 3 to sleep.
Hour and a half walk up from Camp 2. Pretty cold.
One step in front of the other, mate. That's all it is.
Another gruelling day passes. Slowly but surely, they make it to Camp 3 at 7,200 metres.
Yeah, I'm sure I can. I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. And yeah, it looks like it's good. Shout out to Henry. Henry's confident, and I'm fairly confident, and the forecast just seems to be getting better and better.
The winds pick up as another team pushes for the summit on the north side in Tibet. Sherpas radio 3 people have been killed in a storm, 4 are missing, and dozens are heading back to safety. But tragedy is all part of Everest, and the team leaves Camp 3, making its way to the final camp before the summit.
How are we feeling? Fantastic. Ready to go to the top.
It's a perfect day on Mount Everest. Tonight is the night.
Tomorrow, we've been told to get up at 7 o'clock, and we'll be on the oxygen, and we'll be heading up to Camp 4, and hopefully, for weather like this, tent's not even moving, not a mountain, just still as. Be fantastic, and it'll be a good time to do at the summit.
But it's all too good to be true.
Hello, Kenton, you copy me? Loud and clear, this is Kenton, over. Okay, the values are, at 9 o'clock tonight, it's 28. But at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, it's 40, and it will have been 40 for part of the night. At 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, it's 25. I spoke at length to Bracknell, and the guys say that the 40 value is likely to be for fairly constant on a west aspect, and we're southwest, so we'll be getting it fairly constantly as well. My thinking was that had we got our ropes already in, then we may well have gone for it. But fixing at the same time as being in 40 is more than I'm happy with, over. So I take it you're turning your guys around, over? I've turned my guys. I've just called them and told them that it's off, over.
Kenton hears the weather is turning with winds expected over 40 knots, so he makes the heartbreaking call to turn around.
We're so close. A little bit of... We're so close. Yeah. Forecast took the wind speed from 20 knots up to 40 knots. Not a big probability of getting the ropes in ahead. So basically undoable for us. So down to Camp 2, and then people can decide what they want to do.
With time running out, the big question is, will there be a window in the weather for a shot at all?
Ah, God, there's nothing worse than turning your back on a mountain and walking away from it. That sucks. Really sucks, but...
The men are exhausted, and it's down to mental toughness. Just when dozens of other teams are packing up and going home without success, Kenton decides on one last throw of the dice.
It's kind of looking like it might be one of the last chances we have. Don't want to sound like a... well, I suppose sounding more like a realist. Don't want to sound like a pessimist, but we, to a certain extent, got to make this one count, I think.
6 days since the failed attempt, there's nothing ideal about this push. The weather is marginal, the mountains overcrowded with dozens of climbers scrambling for a shot, and all 3 men are now battling illness. Greg has bronchitis and conjunctivitis, Nick has a bad viral infection, JT's laryngitis has worsened, and his frostbitten fingers remain a high risk. After 2 days, the team returns to Camp 3. The place where just under a week ago the conditions were seemingly perfect and spirits were high.
There he is. It's like a little bloody rodent in there. Poke your head out. What are you doing in there?
What am I doing in there? I just had lunch.
But this time it's very different. JT's health has deteriorated. As soon as he arrives at camp, he's put on oxygen and the Sherpas are on standby to take him back down the mountain.
JT woke up very short of breath, so we've used some salbutamol and put him on oxygen.
But as dawn breaks, JT emerges stronger, focused and ready for the job at hand. The team leaves Camp 3 and heads through the yellow band towards the Geneva Spur and Camp 4.
I finally reached the Geneva Spur. This little line of climbers behind me.
After 7 gruelling hours, they make it to their final camp at the South Col at 7,950 metres. Finally, the men start to believe tonight they will get their shot at the summit.
I've got 2 things that I was asked to take up with me, and now's probably as good a time as any to show them to you. The first was given to me by Paul's parents, Betty and Bernie, and it's an athletics ribbon. Paul's oldest girls, Rebecca, Rachel and Jessica, have written messages in there. I haven't read it, I don't intend to, but I've promised them that I'll leave that up there for messages for Paul.
It's 9:45 p.m. The men manage to get a couple of hours rest.
Okay, Greg, is anybody copied that? Someone's gone, we're good to go, over. So we'll be going in the next 15 minutes or so. So get your harness on, fucking fire yourself up with vodka and Red Bull, we're good to go, over.
It's a howling night of 40-knot winds.
Okay, Greg to base camp. We've just got the 10-minute warning to go. Final preparations, just connecting up oxygen, and we'll be leaving here in about 10 over.
Okay, we've got a tent full of people here. I can't tell you what the tension's like. We're all a bit down to the 3rd knuckle of our nails already. It's going to be a very long night. Nima and the Sherpas are all with us, and we're all just, as you can imagine, sending our love and thinking of you all.
Yeah, thanks for that, and if you can just put an alert out, let them know we've gone, and we'll be reporting next from the balcony, over and out.
As night turns to day, the men make their push towards the summit. But all is not well. Greg Linsdale is at the balcony and has lost his Sherpa and is running out of oxygen.
No sign of my Sherpa with the eyes. He just hasn't caught up with me. I don't even know if he's still coming. I'll be here over 20 minutes. I'm getting seriously cold, so you better hurry up.
He can only afford to wait another 15 minutes or we're forced to abort the attempt. We lose all contact. 2 hours pass and now Kenton has been hit by a flying rock. Once again, contact is lost. Then at 6:15 a.m.
Kenton's at the bloody summit. Base camp, copy, over.
As Kenton makes his 2nd summit, JT has broken away from the group and is heading up the Hillary Step with his Sherpa. Slowly, meticulously, he's making his way. 3 hours pass, the head Sherpa Nima receives a call from the top.
JT, got summit!
JT's laryngitis prevents him from talking. He's sitting, taking in the views from the roof of the world and is waiting for his mates. And just on cue, they arrive.
Go ahead, over.
Yeah, base camp, I'm with Nick Farr, John Tyler, and we're standing on top of the world.
It's blowing a gale, but Greg, Nick and JT stand united on the summit of Mount Everest, 8,850 metres.
To base camp, Nick the Cav. We're on the top, baby.
We did it. And Greg's filming as we speak. It's pretty cold. It's been windy the whole time. We're here. We're just going to be careful coming down. We did it, okay?
Thank you.
Say hi to everyone. And we can't wait to see them. And it's can't wait to have them.
Then our 3 Victorian policemen make good on a promise to a mate, Paul Carr, laying his first schoolboy ribbon. 10 years after the man nicknamed Possum founded the group, his dream and theirs is realised.
JT, got something?
We're on the top, baby. We did it.
Just returned from Everest. You can hear the wind. See how cold it is. One of the most demanding days that I've ever had. Took 2 big falls. Told me to get meds. But, Mount Everest. It's fantastic. Hopefully, that's the rest of the team. It's fantastic.
Are you okay, Pema?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you?
I'm very good.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
You got making?
Hey?
You eat? No.
We eat and then we go to camp 2, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's our plan today. Get up. Put all this shit on again. Oh, it's hard. It's hard. One little thing I forgot to mention on that previous video. As I tell you, yesterday we climbed Mount Everest.
Another day and the men emerge from the icefall. The job has been finished.
Yeah, I had a bit of a cry. Still feel like crying.
Yeah.
Sometimes. You know, the job we wanted to do has been done, so yeah, it's good.
I mean, you always hear it, I guess, when people say, well, it hasn't really hit me yet. I think we're in the same boat. I'm not sure when it will. It's starting to as we came down. And, you know, the mountain
wasn't easy for us, but I don't think we would have wanted it any other way.
One thing that you say, JT, is deeds, not words. I guess that's appropriate considering you've just summited and you have no voice.
You can talk about it, but that was something about Paul Carr. It was deeds, not words. So show it by your actions. You know, don't talk the talk, you know, walk the walk. Our goal was the race money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. You know, we went through a bit of pain, but that's only temporary. You know, pride's forever, pain is temporary. What would those kids go through? Oh, it would have been good to have Greg, you know, Nick, Paul, the four of us there would have been fantastic. He was there, you know. I would carry a memento of Paul, you know, so he was there, certainly in spirit, that's for sure. Business is finished now. It's done.
A decade on, Paul Carr's legacy will always live on in the mountains.
Well, I never would have thought 10 years ago that the ending would have been this way, Poss, but we made it, and you were there, and we can all move on, mate. I'm sure you've got better things to do now, and we can close the chapter on this one. The job's finished. And thanks, it's been a pleasure. See you, mate.